The footsteps didn't rush. That was the first thing I noticed. They came slowly, measured, deliberate, like whoever was approaching already knew exactly where we were and had no reason to hurry. The sound of gravel shifting under weight carried too clearly in the stillness, each step tightening something in my chest. Zane didn't turn. He didn't even look. His focus stayed on me, unwavering, as if whatever was coming didn't matter as much as the decision hanging between us. "You stayed," he said quietly. I swallowed, my throat dry. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." His hand was still close to mine, close enough that I could feel the heat of it, but not touching. Not yet. That distance felt intentional, like he was holding something back, or giving me one last chance to step away. Another step echoed behind me. Closer. Instinct screamed at me to turn around, to look, to confirm what was coming, but I didn't. My body stayed locked where it was, caught in the gravity of him. This was wrong. Every part of it. The secrecy, the tension, the way my pulse reacted to his proximity instead of the danger creeping up behind us. "You said they were early," I whispered. "Who are they?" Zane finally moved. Not away, but closer. Close enough that I felt his breath brush faintly against my cheek, warm against the cool night air. My heart stuttered, then picked up faster, louder, like it was trying to be heard over the silence. "I don't know," he said. It should have reassured me. It didn't, because the way he said it didn't sound like uncertainty. It sounded like calculation. "You don't know," I repeated, my voice tightening. "Or you're not telling me." His eyes flickered, just for a second. Something unguarded slipped through. Then it was gone. "Does it matter?" he asked. "Yes, it matters." My voice came out sharper than I intended, breaking the fragile quiet between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The footsteps didn't stop, but they didn't get much closer either. It was like whoever, or whatever, was out there had paused. Waiting, listening. The realization made my skin prickle. "We're being watched," I said, the words barely audible now. Zane's gaze softened, not in comfort, but in recognition. "I told you," he murmured. This wasn't supposed to happen twice. A strange mix of fear and frustration surged through me. "Then explain it to me. Stop talking in circles and just." "I can't." The answer came too quickly. Too final. "Why not?" His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't respond. Then, quieter, almost reluctant, he said, "Because if I say it out loud, it becomes real." The words settled heavily between us. I stared at him, trying to read through the layers he kept shifting in front of me. "What does that even mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, his gaze dropped, slowly, deliberately, from my eyes, to my lips. My breath caught. Everything else, the footsteps, the tension, the unanswered questions, blurred at the edges of my awareness. There was only that look, that shift, and the unmistakable weight of what it implied. "No," I said immediately. But the word lacked strength. It sounded more like a question than a refusal. Zane didn't move right away. He gave me time. Too much time. Time to feel the way my pulse had changed. Time to notice how I hadn't stepped back. Time to realize that the line we'd been circling wasn't in front of us anymore. It was already behind us. "You feel it too," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. That made it worse. "This isn't," I started, then stopped. Because I didn't know how to finish that sentence. "This isn't what? Professional, safe, right." All of those were true. None of them mattered. Another faint crunch of gravel sounded behind me. Closer again. And suddenly, the urgency snapped back into place. "We don't have time for this," I said, my voice low, strained. "We need to." His hand moved then, not to stop me, not to grab, just to touch, fingers brushing lightly against my jaw, hesitant for the first time since I'd met him. The contact was soft, careful, and somehow, that made it more intense than anything else. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, breath catching, muscles tightening, a wave of something unfamiliar and unwelcome rushing through me. I should have pulled away. I didn't. "Why didn't you report me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper now. The question cut through everything else. I blinked, trying to focus. I told you, that wasn't the truth. His thumb shifted slightly, just enough to tilt my chin upward, forcing me to meet his eyes again. Tell me the real reason. The world narrowed, the sounds behind us faded, and suddenly, it wasn't about the danger anymore. It was about this moment, this question. I don't know, I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. That was the truth, and saying it felt like stepping off something solid into open air. Zayn studied me for a long second. Then, softer, almost like he was answering something for himself, he said, I think you do. His hand didn't leave my face. And now, neither of us was pretending it didn't mean something. My chest tightened. This changes things, I said quietly. It already has. Another step, right behind us now, close enough that I could feel it. Close enough that whatever was coming had almost reached us. I should have turned around. I should have broken away. I should have done something. But I didn't, because Zayn leaned in, slowly, carefully, giving me every chance to stop it. And I didn't. The distance between us disappeared in fragments, breath, warmth, tension, and in that suspended second before anything actually happened, I realized something that hit harder than the fear creeping up behind me. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, a deliberate one, and it was about to change everything. A sudden sound broke the moment. Not footsteps, not movement, a voice. Don't. Sharp. Close. Too close. Zayn froze. So did I. The air shifted instantly, tension snapping into something colder, more dangerous. Slowly, too slowly, I turned my head. A figure stood just a few feet away, partially hidden in shadow, their presence swallowing the fragile space we'd created. I couldn't see their face, but I could feel their focus. On us, on the space between us, on what almost happened. Step away from him, the voice said again. Calm, controlled, but underneath it, something else. Something that made my chest tighten in a completely different way. Zayn didn't move immediately. For the first time since I'd met him, there was hesitation in him. Real hesitation, and that terrified me more than anything else. Because whatever this was, whoever that was, it wasn't part of whatever game we'd been playing anymore. And as the silence stretched, thick with everything unspoken and unfinished, one thought cut through the confusion with brutal clarity. What had we just walked into? For a moment, no one moved. Not me, not Zayn, not the figure standing just a few feet away, their presence cutting through the fragile tension like a blade. The air felt heavier now, thicker, harder to breathe, as if whatever had almost happened between us had shifted something irreversible. Zayn's hand dropped from my face. Slowly, deliberately, but the absence of his touch didn't erase it. I could still feel it lingering, warm, uninvited, impossible to ignore. Step back, the voice repeated. Closer this time, more defined. I finally forced myself to move, taking a small step away from Zayn. The distance felt wrong, too sudden, too sharp, like something had been pulled apart before it could fully form. Zayn didn't look at me. His attention had shifted entirely to the figure, and for the first time, I saw something in him I hadn't seen before. Not control, not curiosity, something darker, something guarded. You shouldn't be here, Zayn said, his voice flat now, stripped of everything it held just moments ago. The figure stepped forward, just enough for the faint light to catch the edge of their uniform. Military, higher rank, that much was clear even without seeing their face. Neither should you, the man replied. Silence stretched again, but this time, it wasn't filled with tension between me and Zayn. It was something else, something older, something that existed long before I stepped into it. I asked you a question, the man continued. What is he doing here? His focus shifted to me. I felt it immediately, sharp, assessing, invasive. Like I wasn't supposed to be seen. Like I had already crossed into something I didn't understand. I responded to a call, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. There was a report. There was no report, he cut in. The words landed hard. My stomach tightened. Dispatch sent me. I didn't just. Then someone made sure you would. Another silence. But this one felt final. Like a piece of the truth had just fallen into place, and none of us liked what it meant. I glanced at Zane instinctively. He was already looking at me. And in his eyes, there it was again, that same unreadable weight from the first night. But now, it felt heavier. More personal. You need to leave, he said quietly. The shift in his tone hit harder than anything else. Leave. Just like that. As if what almost happened meant nothing. As if I hadn't just stepped into something that clearly involved him more than he was willing to admit. Zane. I started. Go. This time, it wasn't quiet. It wasn't soft. It was firm. Final. And it hurt more than it should have. Something tightened in my chest, sharp and unfamiliar, but I forced it down. This wasn't about me. It couldn't be. Not anymore. Not with someone else standing here. Watching. Judging. I took another step back, then another, each one feeling heavier than the last. My mind raced, trying to piece together what had just happened, what it meant, why I had been brought here. But none of it made sense. Not yet. I reached the ambulance door and paused, my hand hovering over the handle. I shouldn't look back. I knew that. But I did anyway. Zane hadn't moved. He stood exactly where I left him, his posture rigid now, his expression unreadable again, but his eyes. His eyes were still on me. And for a brief second, just a second, something broke through. Not control, not distance, something closer to regret, or warning. I couldn't tell which. Then the man beside him spoke again, quieter this time, but no less sharp. You've already made this more complicated than it needed to be. Zane didn't respond, but his gaze finally shifted away from me. And just like that, whatever had existed between us snapped. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it just disappeared beneath something heavier. Something dangerous. I got into the ambulance, shutting the door harder than necessary. The sound echoed in the silence, grounding me just enough to move. Engine on. Lights off. I didn't turn the siren back on. I just drove. The road stretched out in front of me, dark and empty, but it didn't feel the same as before. Every shadow felt sharper, every passing second heavier. My hands tightened around the wheel. My mind replayed everything. The call, the footsteps, the voice, Zane, the way he looked at me, the way he told me to leave. None of it felt random. None of it felt finished. And that was the worst part. Because as much as I wanted to walk away from it, to convince myself that this was something I could forget, I knew, deep down, that I couldn't. I had been pulled into something. Something deliberate. Something controlled. And somehow, Zane was at the center of it. Or trapped inside it. Or both. The radio crackled suddenly, breaking the silence. I flinched, my heart jumping before I could stop it. Unit 12, the dispatcher's voice came through, distorted but clear enough. Confirm status. I hesitated, just for a second. Then, Unit 12, clear, I said. A pause. Then, copy that. Also, confirm previous call. My grip tightened. What about it? I asked carefully. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the words came, slower. Confused. Unit 12, there's no record of any call to your location tonight. The world seemed to tilt slightly. What? I said, my voice barely steady. No dispatch was made to you, the voice continued. Are you sure about your last response? My breath caught. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Empty road. No lights. No movement. Nothing. But the feeling didn't go away. Because in that moment, one question rose above all the others, louder, sharper, impossible to ignore. If no one sent me there, then who did? The nights always started the same. Quiet, predictable, safe. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I sat alone in the ambulance, engine humming softly beneath me, the faint vibration traveling up through the steering wheel into my hands. The world outside felt distant, dim streetlights flickering in long, uneven intervals, shadows stretching across empty roads like something alive. It was just past midnight. My favorite hour. Not because it was peaceful, but because it felt honest. No crowds, no noise, no pretending, just silence, and the occasional emergency that reminded me why I was here. I leaned back slightly, exhaling as I watched condensation gather along the edges of the windshield. The heater was barely working again, pushing out uneven warmth that did little against the creeping cold. I rubbed my hands together slowly, more out of habit than necessity. Another shift, another night of strangers, another set of faces I wasn't supposed to remember. That was the rule I lived by. Don't get attached. Don't look too long. Don't think about them after they're gone. Simple, effective, necessary. At least, it had been. A faint sound pulled my attention away from my thoughts. Tap. I froze. Another tap followed, soft, irregular, like something brushing lightly against the side of the vehicle. I turned my head slowly, eyes scanning the darkened window beside me. Nothing. Just my own reflection staring back. Tired eyes. Tense jaw. A face that looked calmer than I felt. It's just the wind, I muttered under my breath. It had to be. There was nothing else out here. No movement. No people. No reason for anything to be. Tap. This time, louder. Closer. My grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Okay. Not the wind. I leaned forward, peering through the side mirror, trying to catch any movement in the narrow strip of darkness behind the ambulance. Still nothing. But the feeling of being watched settled in slowly, like something slipping under my skin. I didn't like that. I reached for the radio, hesitating for a second before pressing it. Unit 12, status check, I said, keeping my voice steady. Static answered first. Then, Unit 12, you're clear. Normal. Everything was normal. So why didn't it feel like it? I let go of the button, the silence returning immediately, thicker than before. I told myself to relax. To stop overthinking. To wait for the next call and move on. That's what I always did. That's what I was supposed to do. But then, the radio crackled again. Unexpected. Sharp. Unit 12, the dispatcher's voice came through, slightly distorted. Respond to incoming. Military personnel involved. Possible injury. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. Military. The word settled heavier than it should have. We got calls from the base sometimes. Routine. Controlled. Nothing unusual. So why did this feel different? Unit 12 responding, I said, already starting the engine fully, the low hum rising into something louder, more urgent. The headlights cut through the darkness ahead of me as I pulled onto the road. Empty streets. No traffic. Just the long stretch of asphalt leading out toward the edge of the city. I should have felt focused. Prepared. Instead, something sat quietly in the back of my mind. Unsettling. Persistent. Like I was driving towards something I didn't fully understand. Or worse, something that had been waiting for me. The base came into view slowly, its outline barely visible against the night sky. No flashing lights. No visible activity. That was the first thing that felt wrong. The second, there was only one person there. Standing near the edge of the road. Still. Watching. Even from a distance, I could tell. He wasn't injured. So why did it feel like I was the one walking into something dangerous?